Hi everyone, Dr. Alex here. I wanted to give you an idea of how I create what I call a graphic timeline with patients and clients to help them not only understand the cumulative effect of things that happen over a lifetime, but also to educate them on how it's all connected physiologically, because a lot of times folks with chronic pelvic pain, particularly something such as persistent genital arousal disorder, they don't, there's a question as to how did this happen? How did this come about? And that could happen with PGAD, that could happen with vulvodynia or vaginismus, that could happen with fibromyalgia, quite frankly, that could happen with autoimmune diseases and diagnoses, etc. So I want to show you what I create for them. And ultimately, through there, I use the questionnaire from the International Pelvic Pain Society because their questionnaire is very comprehensive, and it goes through the medical history as well as the biopsychosocial history. And so as I'm going through that questionnaire with them, I'm creating a visual timeline of their life. And I am sure to highlight not only that before their birth, there is generational and ancestral trauma that creates genetic predispositions or nervous system programming, let alone the nervous system health of their mother while they were in utero, and their prenatal and their neonatal health, right? Were they in the NICU? What kind of stress were they under within the first year of their life? All of that we know programs the nervous system and primes it for the wind up over time. What we also know is something called ACEs, right? Adverse childhood experiences trains the nervous system to be upregulated, which again creates the perfect fertilizer for the system to be stuck in fight or flight mode, and to have kind of chronic inflammation over time. So what I do is, while I go through their biopsychosocial history, I'll write down specific events that stood out to them on the bottom, and then on the top of the line I'll write down when various health issues started to pop up. So when did the constipation start, for example? When did some of the painful periods start, or pain with movement, or when did that athletic injury happen, or when did that surgery happen? When did the traumatic birth happen? When did the divorce happen? When did they lose a parent, right? What were certain events that happened over time? And we want to make sure to definitely look for and include any mold exposure, toxic exposure. All of that can create chemical traumatic brain injuries that people are honestly still learning how to treat, not because we don't know how to treat it, but because it's just not taught in medical schools quite yet thoroughly and comprehensively. So I kind of write it all out here, and just to help them look at the history of your nervous system, and helps them understand, here's the windup, right? Notice how the pain increased over time. Look how the constipation got worse. Look how your allergies got worse, either seasonal allergies, food-based allergies, skin sensitivities, right? All of this is based in the immune system and the immune response, because we know that as the nervous system becomes more and more dysregulated and stays in that dysregulated state, there's increased cortisol. Increased cortisol leads to more histamine release. More histamine release leads to autonomic nervous system dysfunction. So we might get POTS. We might get mast cell activation, which is a key part in fibromyalgia and endometriosis and interstitial cystitis and GI issues, right? It's all really connected, and they can see the snowballing effect of their symptoms. And then what happens is something happens and there's a tipping point. And so it might be a fender bender, it might be a fall, it might be a minor surgery, it might be just stepping off the curb wrong. I had a client once that blamed it on her Mercedes seat massager, but something will happen that tips the scales, and we call that the brain's reserve. When the brain's reserve overflows, when the system has been so built up that it just can't take anymore, and the system overflows, and then something snaps in the brain, in terms of, now the default mode is upregulation. Now the default mode is fight or flight mode and chronic inflammation and chronic pain. Now the chronic pain can still fluctuate in severity, but still the system just doesn't relax. It just doesn't let go. And that's when we have again, kind of sometimes the development of something that then it feels more dramatic or more intense, such as PGAD. So, with persistent genital arousal disorder, you usually have a windup of a history of constipation, and you have therefore the buildup of irritation in the vaginal lining, because mucosal layers all over the body is affected with chronic inflammation in the gut. So you have vaginal lining irritation, inflammation. You can have dry eyes, you can have dry mouth, you can have dermatoses and skin irritations. All of that irritation, though, down in the pelvic floor, the pelvis, is going to start to agitate those nerves, and then you have pelvic floor, the muscles really start to seize up and become tighter. So people might have a golf ball sensation in their rectum. They might have more straining with passing of bowels, which increases that tension. They might have a lot of hip tension and hip tightness, which then leads to lower back pain. All these muscles are all connected, and things just start to get tighter and tighter. And it happens to be in the same part of the body where there is also arousal. What happens with arousal and orgasm, right? The muscles get tense and then they start to spasm, right? That's the process of arousal. The nerves start to become more stimulated. And again, you can have that based on a irritation level or inflammatory based level, where the nerves start to fire when they're not necessarily supposed to fire. But it will mimic the same physiological process as arousal and orgasm. And so because it's from the same part of the body, the brain can kind of be confused. So people have unwanted and unintended arousal symptoms, and sometimes they'll have more arousal with a full bladder, or more arousal, say, during a bowel movement or after a bowel movement. And again, it's just because those same nerves and those same muscles are engaged, and it can become quite a torturous experience, and really feel almost like the body's violating itself, and particularly if people don't understand what's going on. And so we see this windup of the system. And again, if there's been any toxic exposure, or as far as an obvious toxic exposure, or more subtle toxic exposure, such as a lot of pollution in the air, or a nearby factory that you don't know is releasing fumes that starts to overwhelm the immune system, and our liver and our spleen, as it's trying to constantly filter out a lot of the pollution and in our air and in our food that we ingest, just by living on Earth right now. So we have this buildup, and then it hits a tipping point. And so that's when all of a sudden, one more thing can happen. And now we have a chronic state of that upregulation, of that tension, of that stimulation. And if that happens to be in the pelvic floor around the genitals, you're going to have that experience. And so, we see the windup of that happening. We can see the buildup. And so the titration and the healing process has to be from both sides. We have to calm down the nervous system. We might have to neutralize some of these traumas that have happened over time to help. We need to make space in the brain's reserve again. So we need to calm down the nervous system and do some trauma work, but we also need to detox. We need to heal the microbiome. We have to help strengthen our immune system again, so we can have that balance of the immune system and the microbiome working for us rather than against us. Otherwise, we're constantly trying to clean something up when the stuff is still there, so to speak, right? It's kind of like trying to empty a bathtub with a bucket when the faucet is still on. We've got to turn the faucet off, or at least be able to turn it down as much as possible. And that's what we do through detox diets and anti-inflammatory diets, and all the different interventions that we can do. But ultimately, for the point of this video, I wanted to demonstrate again the windup of the nervous system, and how you can help connect the dots for your clients between a client's history, biopsychosocial history, their medical history, and their physical history of surgeries and injuries, and chronic issues over time. We see the windup in the nervous system. We see the buildup of stress and trauma. And then again, usually there's that tipping point where things really got bad for them. And so that doesn't mean we need to revisit every single bad thing that's ever happened to them, but we have to see what's on top, right? What is the body asking for? What are the takeaways here, right? From different things, either in childhood or from takeaways or beliefs that were created with certain either relationships or interactions with healthcare providers that didn't understand this big picture, right? Maybe they were told that they were never going to get better, or that they had to get used to it. Maybe they were told that it was all in their head, right? So what are some of the beliefs and the takeaways that are holding them back from understanding how the system is capable of healing? And so a lot of times us therapists can tend to zoom in and only focus on this and say, well, we just need to change your beliefs and change your cognitive processes, but that can unintentionally send the message that it's all in your head, which it's not. Now, it's a big piece of the picture, right? Our beliefs can absolutely keep our system upregulated, but the pain can keep us upregulated, right? And the chronic inflammation can keep us upregulated too, because of the direct connection between the brain-gut axis. So we want to make sure that we are treating the whole picture, treating the whole person, addressing the beliefs, teaching them about their bodies, and empowering them about the absolute capability of the body's ability to return to health, return to balance, return to well-being. And then we go to all the different specialties and what they offer in terms of supporting the body in different ways, for that detox, for that rejuvenation, for that balancing effect. And know that sometimes just going over this picture can be really powerful. For people to not only say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm not crazy. I didn't make this up. Yes, everything matters, right? It all filled up the brain's reserve. But now I can help calm the system. Now I have kind of a game plan. This kind of provides a map. And as many of you who know me, I use the 4D wheel, Gina Ogden's 4D wheel, for mind, body, heart, and spirit, to make sure we're addressing all aspects of a person's life. To really be able to have a holistic, simultaneous, multidisciplinary approach once the system has gotten into that chronic pain, chronic inflammation cycle. So the cycle can always be broken. POTS or MCA, mast cell activation syndrome, or chronic pain, or endo, or any of those things. In my observation and in the science of, when you assimilate all these different research around the world from these different fields, it's clear that the system is absolutely able to heal. We just need to get the right team on board and be able to help the client truly understand what's going on, so they can get it right. When you understand how a machine works, you know how to fix it. You know how to put it back together again. You're not scared by any of the symptoms. You're not scared by things ebbing and flowing. You're not scared by flares, because you get it. You understand kind of the how and the why it happens. And we want to increase a sense of resourcefulness. We want to help someone feel that they have the resources they need to support their systems in returning to that place of well-being and balance. And so that's what I do. That's what I love. And so I hope you found this helpful in terms of understanding how to approach maybe an initial session with a client, where you're reviewing their history, you're helping connect the dots, and you're saying, okay, this is why we're going to have the game plan we have moving forward in our work together. All right, so I hope this helps. Have a great day. Bye.